Okay, we're live already, and I'll let you know once people are able to hear and see and everything.
Can I see the numbers of people that you see
Oh, yeah.
or not?
Yeah. There we go. We're live. As soon as I see it on my end. One moment. This StreamYard delay is wild. There we go. Okay, can people hear me? Want to make sure I am audible. One moment. There we go. Audience, you all able? Good. Audio is great. We are live, everyone. Everybody, we're going to have a great and a very, very fun dialogue. We're going to talk about whether or not believing in Eucharistic miracles is reasonable. And John, of course, he says no. But maybe we can change his mind. You do say no, right, John? You don't, they're not reasonable to you, eh?
No, I don't. I present the evidence, Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. What do you, well, this is interesting because there's a lot of evidence that can be presented. But of course, I'm curious what your responses would be. Have you looked into any of them? For instance, if I bring up one of them off the top of my head that I can think of, the Eucharistic miracle of Lanciano, Italy. Have you looked into any of them at all?
Yeah, I saw that just earlier today. I was looking at it. I was actually trying to figure out how to pronounce it. But I think the main miracle, wouldn't you say, would be just claiming that the Eucharist is the body and blood of Jesus.
Sure, that's a miracle. Right.
That's the main one, right?
Yeah, that's the main one. We believe transubstantiation occurs at every mass. Every priest does bring about the body, blood, soul, divinity of Christ at the mass. Yeah, of course. Yeah, we believe that.
May I have a question about that initially? I mean, I got lots of questions about that.
Yeah.
But just one that occurred to me now, which I hadn't rehearsed or thought of before, just came to me. And I don't mean to have a gotcha moment. I mean, you've surely thought about this. What about the priests who confess to some serious sins with boys, and choir boys, the pedophiles. I mean, what if they're supposedly, giving the Eucharist to someone? I mean, just off the top of my head, you probably.
Well, I mean, it's bad. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. We don't ever think that any priest doing something like that should even be in ministry to begin with. But it wouldn't invalidate the Eucharist. So you can have a bishop, you can have a priest that are sinful, and of course we have sinful people everywhere, and they can bring about a valid Eucharist because they have valid holy orders. You don't need to be perfectly sin-free in order to perform in ministry. But of course, anybody in grave sin, we wouldn't want them to be doing ministerial work, but it wouldn't prevent bringing about a valid Eucharist, because the Bible has examples of all kinds of sinful people, and they don't lose their office merely by being sinful.
Okay, I'll leave it for it. I'm not trying. That wasn't a gotcha moment. I was just kind of wondering. I mean, that's pretty a big time sin, handling the body and blood of Jesus, right? I mean, that's if you believe it's the body and blood of Jesus and you're administering a sacrament, I just thought it would be more difficult than how you answered that, I guess. So.
Well, in your mind, do you think that I know you don't believe the Bible to be the word of God, but do you think in your mind that automatically you lose your office by being sinful? I mean, Judas didn't lose his bishopric until he died, and then they filled his office after his death. And Judas was pretty bad. He was a pretty dastardly figure.
I just threw it out there. I mean, I'm not trying to make a big point of it. I mean, here it's a sacrament. You're holding a sinless body in your hand. I mean, it's a sacrament. I'm just you would think that it would nullify the sacrament, but that's just what I initially would say. I mean, you can't have that kind of sin touch the Eucharist and then allow that Eucharist as a sacrament. So
the way that we view it is the biblical way. We view the priest as an instrument, but ultimately the reason priests are called to do what they do in persona Christi is that we believe Christ is the one who consecrates. So it isn't the validity of the sacrament wouldn't be based upon whether or not he's worthy, because at the end of the day, until we're completely pure and ready for heaven, the way we view it is none of us are really truly worthy, and much less worthy enough you're right, to hold the body of Christ in our hands. So with that in our mind, it isn't a matter of worthiness, it's a matter of the validity. And even if one isn't worthy, it would still be valid. And I brought up Judas. Judas is, to me, is a great example. He was wicked, but Christ still gave the apostles real authority, and they still had real ministry even before that betrayal. So, I mean, that's the example that I would put. Do you have any objection to that?
I'm not making an argument. I'm just asking a question, sure. And it just seems like to me. Just seems like to me, you have a problem there, but I'm not trying to convince you. I just mentioned it. It seems like you would think that God would not want to be associated with such a thing like that. I mean, people who are baptized under that priest or are married or especially given the Eucharist might want to do their vows and their baptism's over.
Well, the priest, the sin of the minister would harm him. It wouldn't harm the validity of the sacrament. So, a sin, if one is indefinitely in grave sin, it would make his ministerial act, illicit, but it wouldn't make it invalid. So invalid would mean the sacrament doesn't happen. Illicit would mean that in Catholic lingo, that it does happen, but it was done unlawfully or done sinfully. So, but that principle is all over the Bible. Now, I know the answer to you is you find it lacking, but from the paradigm of one who is dealing with the Bible, that it is a valid answer is my point.
Okay, and I have one last, a second question, and then you can get on with your point. And it has to do with the Eucharist, and
yeah, go for it.
I mean, it might go to the heart of everything that I think. I'm not letting you talk, but I'll just throw this out there as well, and that is, have you ever subjected the Eucharist once the priest has prayed over it just prior to giving it, to administering it to the parishioners? Have you ever given it to a scientist under a microscope? I mean, this is a standard question. You probably heard it before. Have you ever looked at that to see if there's any living material there, any human, especially if you can detect the divine type of body in there? Have you ever subjected it to a scientific analysis?
How would one detect the divine body? That's a weird question, but has anybody grabbed a hold of a host, or have I done it prior to consecration? No, I haven't. But that would presuppose that every single instance of transubstantiation is a visible Eucharistic miracle. That isn't the argument. The argument is that there are particular times in history where there are visible miracles that break through the barriers of our world, and we are able to physically see a hunk of flesh or blood. And with those, in particular, Lanciano, Italy, that has been submitted for study. People have done research on that, and others as well. There's many others. I counted a ton of them, but several ones to where there's just not a good logical explanation at all. To where I've looked at the best arguments of, in terms of could this be corruption or whatever. I don't find any good arguments to argue against it. I do want to let the audience. So, audience, if you all have questions for myself or for John, send them in. I want to give Ralph a shout out. Ralph says, "Brother William, I catch you live, man. God bless you, Brother Ralph. We hope you're enjoying it, my friend." Now I can hear feedback on your end. I don't know if you turned 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Oh, that's good. There we go. That's better. Yeah, I can hear you better there now. Okay, that's good. But yeah, so I think it's very difficult to get around. So did you look at the investigation of Odoardo Linoli, professor of anatomy and pathological histology? Did you look at his investigation for Lanciano, Italy?
Well, what I'm looking for is, I'm not looking for evidence of the divine. I'm looking for evidence of a cell structure moving and maybe blood flow of any kind. And which is not microscopic. I mean, okay, that's a bug we can identify or something like that. But I would presume that there would be nothing but dead matter in there, and that would be a problem.
I don't think that would be a problem. The flesh that was studied there in the 1971 investigation was human tissue, cardiac tissue, and the blood was human blood. The reportings were published in a particular Quaderni Sclavo di Diagnostica Clinica e di Laboratori in 1971. The study's right here. I can provide it for you there. So I think that is good, because you can see that physical material is existing here, and it was histologically, is the word I'm looking for, examined. Now, I don't think there's any test to be able to, see a divine body, as you said. But for the claims that are being made that a real miracle has occurred, in terms of once the words have been said, that a real Eucharistic miracle has been said, and for my thesis that this is reasonable to believe in, I'd say we got pretty good evidence here.
I haven't seen it, but I just ask for people to consider that and follow your research. And
what would convince you? What would it take to convince you?
Well, I can tell you that. I mean, it has to do with how you investigate anything, and you would put it under a microscope of a neutral, scientist just looking for what he could find, and it would be reviewed by peers. I mean, you wouldn't just say take one person's advice on it, and presumably a recent, investigation, of that.
Well, it was reviewed by multiple individuals, and then later it was reviewed by this particular individual. But is your argument that you would need more than one professor? Because we do have that for other Eucharistic miracles. For the one of Buenos Aires, that one we have multiple ones. I mean, if you ultimately, if your argument is we should have more than one professor looking at this, we do have that for multiple of these cases. What would the response be to that?
Well, okay, that's you're asking me to assume that they were honest scientists, and that's what they discovered. They discovered, moving tissue inside a Eucharist, right? You asked me to assume that?
I mean, you're right away starting off calling into question their integrity.
I have a book called How to Defend the Christian Faith, and then behind it says advice from an atheist. And so I give, of course you've read it. I give some advice to budding apologists, and I go through the various types of strategies that they use to defend their faith. And the very last chapter is when all else fails, lie. And in that chapter, which I don't have right here with me right now, I mean, there's evidence of apologists claiming things like I died, came back to life, when that was shown to be a lie, or I died and went to heaven, came back, or I died and went to hell and came back, and other sorts of things that I mentioned, including one that William Lane Craig did in a debate with Stephen Law about the frontal cortex, when he was talking about animal suffering and whether or not they felt pain. And I think the lie was animals don't have, or certain mammals, the ones in question, don't suffer pain because they don't have a prefrontal cortex. So either he's lying or he's ignorant there. But although he did double down on that, and when questioned a second time. So I'm not saying you or your scientists are, but the reason why I said it all can have some merit to it, even if it doesn't have any merit here in this case.
But isn't that a pretty grand claim of conspiracy? That every scientist in all of these Eucharistic miracles, all of them are lying. For what gain?
Well, I mean, how many are there?
I mean, there's a lot. I mean, you would lose count. There's so many Eucharistic miracles. I only gathered a few of them. There's tons of Eucharistic miracles. You have to see the point that we're looking at it from this particular point of view. That if I look at the evidence we have of Lanciano, Italy, the Buenos Aires, the Tikla, and others, it's a wild case that everyone would have to have lied. I just don't see that isn't reasonable. Now, and what we're trying to prove is it reasonable to believe these Eucharistic miracles? I think at the end of the day, it is reasonable, because the objection. Now, I know you didn't put that forth, but anticipating it, an objection that these would all be church controlled, that isn't there. They're not all church. They're not all church controlled. Has the church done an investigation? Sure, but so have many other scientists in independent laboratories. And this would be a wild kind of conspiracy theory, that at least something would get out there that the church, I don't know, paid off all these scientists. You have to see it from my point of view, John. It just doesn't make any sense.
Well, yeah, I don't know. You're the host. You can direct the flow of thoughts. But I would like to place Eucharistic miracles in conjunction with other relics and claims to miracles. Sure. Yeah. And I think it was Erasmus in the I think 15th century. He pointed out that if we had every sliver of every cross that is claimed to have been the cross of Christ, we could build a house with it. Sure. There was
but the very big difference is that there were even people within the church that recognized that there were people claiming to have pieces of the true cross, and they called that out for being fraudulent. The enormous difference is that you didn't have these being investigated in the way that these are investigated. And the church right away said, we need to be cautious about this. And the church is cautious because the church is investigating these, and then scientists are investigating them. I think it's pretty reasonable to believe there's something going on here. And through all the research, it would be grand kind of conspiracy theory that, in my opinion, this kind of conspiracy theory has to go to antiquity. It doesn't line up, because I know you can't do these kinds of controlled investigations with perhaps like the miracle of Pope St. Gregory the Great of the Middle Ages. But the eyewitness accounts that we have written down, I think, are pretty powerful. And then you follow that unbroken lineage throughout history of these miracles. It would just be a kind of conspiracy theory that, in my opinion, simply just doesn't work.
Well,
okay, go ahead. I do want to for the audience, if they have questions, I'm going to go to the audience as well. So, Jimmy, thank you for the support, brother. He says, "Hey, John, do you think the church is being deceptive and untruthful in regards to the science?"
Well, I think I said that's a possibility. I mean, I did say that. When you talk about things like the foreskin of Jesus, there are at least 12 churches that claim they have the foreskin of Jesus, and that relic provides healing. Now, it can't be the case there. See, it just can't be the case there. But it raises money for church building.
But you're now going from Eucharistic miracles to
that's true
issue like the foreskin, and we are talking about Eucharistic, right? But we're talking about Eucharistic miracles, and you're going to another topic. I could definitely dive into that and talk about that, but I want to focus on Eucharistic miracles in terms of this, because Eucharistic miracles, as much as you want to make light of the issue of the foreskin or what have you, the fact of the matter is, these Eucharistic miracles we have in the contemporary era to us recently, just a few years back, where the investigations that have been done have been massive. And the evidence, in my opinion, is pretty top notch. So it isn't like the foreskin of Jesus to where you can say, well, this is a complete lie. You can only trace it to the Middle Ages. So we're talking about things in the 2020s where you can make that argument, other than, as Jimmy asks, other than if your opinion is the church is being deceptive, well, then what do you make of the scientists? Are they all being deceptive?
Well, I just raised that one issue. I mean, there are other kinds of things that, like the shroud. There are different shrouds, but one is more.
No, there's not. There's only one shroud. You're thinking of the Veronica's veil. You're thinking of veils and other stuff. There's only one shroud. Yeah, there's only one shroud.
And just relics abound. I mean, I did a little research. I don't have a list of all of them right here, but there's a abounding of these relics that people pray to and who have done miracles for them. And this seems that if you can find a relic like the foreskin, then you kind of can get an idea of what's going on. That's all. And so if it doesn't fit well with you, if you don't agree, then I guess there's not much I could say about that beyond that that's what's happening. That's what the people are worshiping. And if you want to continue talking about the Eucharist, I'm willing.
People don't worship relics. They give them honor. They don't worship them. But you would admit that there is a different level of testing and much better evidence for these modern day Eucharistic miracles than perhaps a relic of the Middle Ages in your mind. You would admit that from a skeptic's point of view. You would have to admit that.
A difference. That's what I'm trying to show, that there's probably not much of a difference. I mean,
how if these have been submitted to independent laboratory studies, whereas these other relics are old and they haven't been, but these new Eucharistic miracles have been. You have to admit that that's clearly different. That's a different standard.
As you know, I have a bunch of books out there. Here's one, Christianity in the Light of Science, and in one chapter on the Shroud, Joe Nickel, he goes through the various theories and determines that it's dated 1260 to 1390.
I don't agree with that dating. I think that
I didn't think you would.
I think better dating has dated that earlier. A piece of that, no doubt, a piece of that was dated to that year. But I think that dating is not accurate. More research has come out, even by individuals that weren't initially believers. More research has come out.
That's fine. But would you agree with your own Pope if there might be something in what I'm about to read?
In terms of what? In terms of what?
The Vatican acquired the Shroud of Turin in 1983, and they did their own kind of testing on it. And in 2013, Pope Francis revealingly referred to the cloth as an icon, that is a work of art rather than a relic. And then Joe says, does he know the difference between icon and relic? And his very last sentence is the Pope Catholic?
Yeah, so I think that's misconstrued.
It probably is. I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, you wouldn't just go away what Joe Nichols said.
Yeah, no, definitely misconstrued, and I'm very well aware of that. So, and you didn't read the whole quote there, and I do have the whole quote. Let me pull it up, and I'm aware of it because I have the whole quote from a Shroud scholar. So, Francis actually said it's an icon of a man scourged and crucified. So he didn't just say it was an icon in the sense of icons that are drawn them. That's not what he meant at all. In fact, this was in 2013. He didn't mean it in that way. In fact, if you look at his words in 2015, he says, and I'm quoting him, "The shroud draws us to the face and martyred body of Jesus." And then he called it the icon of this love. So the way he's using icon there is not tantamount to something drawn or done as a kind of artwork. He's not using it there. So I'm simply going to say, I hope that you at least brought that nuance out in your book. Otherwise, you got an error there in your book. You didn't bring that nuance out. Come on, John. You got to do better in your published works. Come on.
Well, see, do better, man. Yeah, when we're talking about relics, I'm really not too well versed. You would ask me to come on your program because you wanted to see how I would squirm.
I can tell you're squirming now. Yeah, we got you squirming now, man. Look, man, I want you to come to Catholicism, John. It's not about wiping the floor with you. It's about having you come to the truth. That's what it's about.
Hey, buddy. I used to be a Catholic. I don't think you.
Not a practicing one.
I used to be a Catholic.
But you weren't a practicing one. You admitted that to me.
Well, I don't know what it was. I don't know what it's like to practice as a Catholic in one way, but I did go through confession and the catechism school. And as a kid, I was groomed to be a Catholic, and I did whatever Catholics did and prayed the rosary so many times. So what I say in my later life, I don't know what it means to be a practicing Catholic. What I'm saying is I don't know what anyone thinks it means to be a practicing Catholic. So you can't take my words out of context there. I was a practicing Catholic by all intents and purposes. Yeah.
I thought you were a Protestant, John. I thought you were a Protestant.
No, I was raised Catholic.
Okay.
I had a conversion to Protestantism in 73 from out of the Jesus. Let's see, the countercultural movement to Jesus. We wore bell bottoms before, and we wore bell bottoms afterward. And
all right. Well, then I guess let me correct it and let me say I want you to come back to the truth. Is what I would say. Then I didn't know that you were a practicing Catholic. Okay. Well, I'd want you to come back to the truth, John. And
that's the height of your delusion, my friend. That one right there is more delusional than anything else you might believe in. That I might come back.
You never know. But you never.
Well, even the Bible says the dog. See, what does the Bible say? A dog does not return to his vomit, or is it the opposite? I forget now. That's so long ago. But
well, I would say that atheism most definitely is vomit. So you're most definitely mired in vomit right now. But when trying to get you out of that, vomit and trying to get you to come to Christ, that's what we're trying to do. And if it means pointing out errors in your book where you try to use Pope Francis as an ally and he's clearly not an ally, well, then we'll do it. But look, as you've taught me many years ago when we debated and you recommended that book to me that you wrote, How to Do Christian Apologetics, I forgot. I've got it in Audible, and I have a hard copy of that book, a physical copy. As you recommended to me, I'm going to recommend to you. Presenting real information and not partial truths is always going to help your case. And that partial quote of Pope Francis doesn't help your case. I'll just tell you that. That doesn't help your case. You got to provide the whole quote. That wasn't the whole quote. Lino Molina, brother, God bless you, my friend. Lino Molina wants you to become Catholic again. He says, can you prove, John, both scientifically and or mathematically, that the world is ontologically closed off? Can you prove that reality is closed off to the ontic?
Well, just a minute. I got a phone call. I want to close this down here. It's potential spam. You get a lot of those because I do, and it's annoying. Now I'm going to have to shut this thing down so that they can't. There we go. This and then that. Well, the proof. Let's talk about proof. I'm not exactly sure what it means to prove something. If you're talking about giving it no possibility whatsoever, that's pretty good. That's pretty solid thing. But if you can talk about proof beyond a shadow of doubt, that's a little bit easier. Proof by by probabilities, you can mention probabilities by 66%, or 76%, or 86, or 96. I don't know why I chose the 6, but if you could say I could prove it with 96% probability, or 8, then I could do that. Then I can prove that, and I do that. Not really right here, right now, but I don't see any reason to think that there's a spiritual reality. I don't see any evidence that is believable to think that there's especially a triune God who sent Jesus.
But do you think you would be able to visibly see the spiritual? You just called it a spiritual realm. You think you'd be able to physically see it, though? I'm just curious. Is that what you're trying to say?
Any pointing out of inconsistencies with how I talk is not the same as pointing out any inconsistency as how I think.
So let me ask you this. What kind of evidence would you accept as making belief in a miracle rational?
Well, I would, we should talk about that first. I think that a miracle should have the preponderance of probabilities to it.
Right.
And I think it'd be kind of good if the Catholic Church itself would be able to verify enough miracles that it matters. And I don't find that that's the case. I think many have been verified. I think many have. That's true. And Lourdes, France, the most credible estimates has that they from the millions and millions of people who have claimed and proven that a miracle took place, that 67 of them were confirmed by the Catholic Church, which gives us a reliability of 0.0000165.
John, that doesn't mean, that just means the church clearly cannot test every single miracle. John, come on, you're better than that.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
I would hope that you'd be better, because if that's the best, because I consider you one of the best atheism has to offer. And if that's the best, my people here are going to be just, their faith is going to be so strengthened. I mean, the church simply cannot test every single miracle claim. So that's absurd.
That's far from what I said.
But what you said,
are you saying to me that the Catholic Church does not have the ability to test 5 every decade down through the centuries?
I'm telling you that the Catholic Church has never ascertained to test every single miracle from Lourdes or from Fatima. But what I can tell you is that I'd love to hear your refutation to those miracles there, of cases of people that have gone and they've been terminally ill. And there are secular doctors that don't become believers after, but secular doctors in multiple cases that confirm that they were diagnosed with a particular ailment. They go to Lourdes or to Fatima and they're healed, completely healed. I mean, I would love to hear how you can rationally explain that, because to me, remember today, I mean, there's no way for me to, pull out a video and show you the miracle actually occurring. But I can present to you that it is rational, reasonable. That's my thesis. It's reasonable to believe in Eucharistic miracles, like it is reasonable to believe in the miracles of Fatima and Lourdes. How do you explain those particular cases? All fraudulent?
Well, I have a chapter in one of my books, The Case Against Miracles, where Darren Slade takes us through the kind of things that would show beyond a shadow of a doubt that a miracle took place. And, I just don't find any of that for the kind of miracles that Christians claim taken place. And you should probably tell me of those. I know you want to. You're all pumped and primed.
Well, I mean, simply quoting some guy named Slade without any evidence that these are false. I mean, I'd like to hear the evidence that these can be falsified or they're. I mean, again, it would be a grand conspiracy kind of claim to say every single one of these are fake, just like all of these Eucharistic miracles. I mean, at a particular point, John, you're going to have to stop and think, well, maybe there's something supernatural going on. I know you've thought that. You can't tell me you haven't. I know you've thought that. I know for a fact you have.
But you're funny.
I know you. I know for a fact. God bless you, AB. God bless you, brother. I know for a fact you have. And the brother AB says, I was once an atheist due to science, and I learned it's not either or, it's both and. I am now, again, a practicing Catholic, which is what you should be soon, John.
Well, let me just read to you. You're asking me what counts for identifying and believing in a miracle. And I have thought about this for a long time.
Good.
And when it goes to chasing a rabbit hole down to the bottom, that's tough to do. It's tough to define a word precisely. Sometimes it takes a lot of thought, a lot of parsing. But I do know what doesn't count, and you've probably heard me say this before, and I want to say it again if you don't mind. It's one paragraph.
Go ahead.
And I'd be interested to see what you think of this. I know what does not count for the kind of evidence that you need for a miracle. Okay, here's what does not count, and I'll reread it in case you say, "Well, stop back," earlier. But let me read it through. I know what does not count as evidence for miracles. Second, third, fourth-hand hearsay testimonial evidence doesn't count. You'd probably agree. Nor circumstantial evidence. You'd probably agree. Nor anecdotal evidence as reported in documents that are centuries later than the supposed events, you should agree, which were copied by scribes and theologians who had no qualms about including forgeries. I think you should know that. I also know that subjective feelings or experiences or inner voices don't count as evidence that could convince me of a miracle, nor someone who tells others his writings are inspired, like Doubting Thomas, nor divine communication through dreams or visions. Now, is there anything else you want me to go back over, and anything you disagree with me about? I know what does not count as the evidence for miracles. That would require belief in miracles. That's what I said.
But you're still refuted no matter what, because everything you wrote down, I wrote it down. Second-hand or third-hand testimony doesn't count. Okay. I don't agree. To say second-hand or third-hand doesn't count is simply false. You're wrong. It may be weaker than direct eyewitness testimony. It's still evidence, so you're wrong there. Just based on logic alone. But here is your other issue, John, is that I was very careful. I could have gone to my favorite Eucharistic miracles of antiquity, but I didn't do that, John. I stuck with the modern era, meaning where there is eyewitness evidence very early on. I'm talking about the modern day, and you can't deal with that. Notice how I stuck with Tiklat. I stuck with, I don't think you can argue the Wenositis case either, but I'm sticking with early ones. So, but I don't agree with you saying secondhand. Certainly you don't think second or third hand is worthless, do you?
Well, let's just, if you don't mind, you probably read what I've written about doubting Thomas. I mean,
I've read every book of yours, John.
He said, I won't believe unless, I see and touch the risen Jesus. And so then Jesus, we are told in the story that Jesus arrived and gave him evidence. And so then he came away believing. And then the author of the Gospel of John says, it concludes by saying, therefore, blessed is he who believes even though he doesn't see. And what that sentence has to do, I might have misquoted a word or two of that, but it's accurate just to say.
I understand your point. That's fine.
That lesson of doubting Thomas is for everyone who's reading, and that is that we are to believe. I mean, he didn't believe the disciples. He didn't believe his fellow disciples, according to the context there. He didn't believe. Judas, of course, had to be replaced, so you'd have 10 other disciples saying that Jesus arose from the dead. He says, I'm not going to believe what you say. And he didn't want to believe even the people who said that Jesus arose. And you would think they would be saying to her, you stupid idiot, come on. And all 10 of us said we saw Jesus rise from the dead. Now, he says, nope, I'm not going to believe until, this is a story. Now, by the way, this is a story. This is not something I think happened. So in the story, then he says, he's told, blessed is he who believes even though he doesn't see. See, doubting Thomas becomes a model for us that whatever
happens to doubting Thomas, what happens?
He came to believe according to the story. We don't even know if he existed. I mean,
so we don't. What do you mean we don't know he existed, John? Come on.
Well, I mean, there might be a Thomas. I'm not saying there might be a disciple who's named Thomas, but we don't.
According to what do you falsify historical evidence of these figures existing early on? I mean, come on, John. Not even Josephus would have denied that followers of the Christ existed. He mentions James very clearly, and early testimony mentions other figures as well. I mean, that you can't just deny everything, John. You got to be reasonable too. But the issue of doubting Thomas, if you're taking his case, which I know you probably believe it's all falsified, but he eventually does come to believe because of the testimony of him seeing and feeling the risen Christ. But even if you want to call that into question, we're talking about Eucharistic miracles. And we're not, you even though I didn't agree with you, you believe that second and third hand testimony is useless. I would say it isn't useless, it's weaker. But you can't deal with a Wenositis case with that, because that is firsthand. So what do you do with the Eucharistic miracle cases that are firsthand, that are not second or third? Have you considered that in your book?
No. You
got to rewrite that book, John. Either that or become a believer.
Well, I haven't considered the miracles of the foreskin of Jesus either, or the Shroud of Turin.
But we're talking about modern miracles. You know exactly what we're talking about. You are, and by the way, for the audience, it's not that I don't believe in miracles of antiquity. But I hear John all the time talking, okay, well, why don't these occur in the modern era where you can have firsthand witnesses and what have you? Well, there are miracles occurring in the modern era. John, I hear you say it all the time when attacking the bodily resurrection. Well, why aren't there miracles happening today? But there are, but you keep denying them all. So you're missing all of them because they're all false. So you deny them all. I mean, ultimately, you're gonna. This is a grand conspiracy theory, John, that everything is fake, everything is false. Second and third hand witnesses aren't good, but we're dealing with first hand witness testimony, and even that isn't valuable to you.
Well, I know enough about the Bible. I know I've studied the Bible. I've written 15 books. I've published 15 books, and there's a lot of inconsistencies in the Bible. There's a lot of stories that are completely unbelievable. There are borrowings there from pagan sources. There are miracles in the Bible that there's no sane person would believe. Having to do with fire coming down from the sky and burning up a
what story is
sacrifice.
ripped off? What story is ripped off from paganism, John? Give me one from the Bible.
Well, there's several in Genesis.
John, no, there's not. Now I'm going to do what I do.
Noah,
to Bob
the
Price,
story of Noah.
To Dr. Bob Price, I'm going to do to you what I do to him, and I'm going to ask you for it. And so be careful where you go, because I'm going to ask you for actual manuscript evidence where you claim this pagan story is more ancient, and I'm going to ask you to prove that from antiquity, because I don't believe that to be the case. I don't think that anything is ripped off from paganism. But give me a particular story. We'll deal with it.
Well, the story of the flood, chapter 6 in Genesis. You can take that.
Where does that come from originally? Where's it ripped off from?
Well, I think there's a Deuteronomy author that put it all together, but I think there's a priestly author in it, and probably also Elohist, author. What they did is they had their own stories, and when they came together as the tribes, they constructed a Noah's flood out of both accounts. And in fact, if you take those sentences, you can separate them into two absolutely different flood stories. And so there's two sources in one text, and they preserved every word. And
two sources.
That's why there's the problems in it. Like, how many days was the flood? How many times did the animal? How many times did the animals come into the ark? And those things that were put together by the Deuteronomists. So
no, two sources would not prove this is falsifiable. You should know better. Two sources.
All you have to do is read the story.
Two sources would not prove that it's falsifiable. But I don't see any evidence. You would need to provide actual evidence that the account of the flood or any other account is ripped off from earlier stories. So I'm going to ask you this. I'm going to press you, and I know you're not going to have an answer. Is there a writing that exists prior to those writings of the Bible, of the one that you're mentioning right now, that we can date to earlier that actually shows that the biblical text is ripping off from it? That's the answer.
Well, this is just now what you're doing here for this.
You're making the grand claim. You better have the
evidence. No, it's true. Who wrote the Bible book by Friedman? What's his first name?
But Friedman doesn't give you the answer, though. I'm waiting for the answer from you, not from Friedman.
No, I mean, this just my throwing out a name or an event or two is not going to do it. You're going to have to read books, people. You're going to have to read books, okay? That's, you say, well, you want to solve these problems.
But you're going to have to provide. You're going to have. I came here and I have the receipts, but you don't have any receipts. You can clearly see there's a problem when I see you don't have any receipts. You're making grand claims. Now, if I was making a grand claim, if I was right here, John, and I made a claim, we have all these witnesses for this Eucharistic miracle, and you said, okay, give me them. And I said, well, now you're going to have to do that research on your own. I wouldn't make that grand claim if I didn't have the receipt. So I'm going to tell you, I don't agree with your claim that the flood story is ripped off from paganism, and I've never found the evidence. In fact, a common friend of ours, Dr. Bob Price, has made that particular claim, and I've never seen good evidence for it. So I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you.
There's no evidence for a worldwide flood.
No, but the evidence of it ripping off from earlier stories.
You said no?
Provide that.
So you said no?
No, not that he said no. He never provided the evidence. He made the claim too, but he never provided the evidence.
Well, are you by any chance, are you a young earther? You think that the universe is 4,000 to 8,000 years old, or 4,000 to 10,000 years old?
It's not my area. The age of the universe. This is not my area of expertise.
You would lose all credibility with me if you were to say
that's just not my area of expertise. I don't know a thing about that. I'll leave that to other people. Not my area of expertise. I'll tell you what my area of expertise is, and that is pulverizing every atheist debater that I've come across. Every one of them. I got all you guys' heads on my wall. I pretty much have name them. Christ, Crossley, you. Who else do you want to name?
Crossley.
Yeah.
Is that a scholar like him? And you say you nailed him to the wall? What'd you say? You got him? Oh,
I've got his head. I've got his head as a trophy, like I've got your head as a trophy.
Yeah, you're delusional.
I tell you one thing, my friend. What delusional is making grand claims and not having evidence to back them up. Wait, let me tell you something, John. Hold on. Let me tell you something. And I told you this a lot of times that you don't like hearing it, but I'm going to tell you. Very few people have strengthened my faith like you. Because I read all of your books. You told me to read them. I read all of them. And if that is the best that atheism has to present, well, my goodness, Catholicism looks really nice right about now. Really nice. I want to give a shout out to our near and dear brother, St. Francis Babytoe. He says, the atheistic model of the universe was destroyed by a Catholic priest, Father Lemaitre. He was laughed at by the physics community. When he was proven right, the atheistic scientists essentially said that he proved God. He changed all of physics. How do you respond to that? That's a phenomenal question.
Yeah, Lemaitre, he was the guy who, upon being asked, according to the legend, being asked by Napoleon Bonaparte, Napoleon said, "You wrote this really huge book," and he congratulated him. He says to him, "Why is there no mention of God in it?" And Lemaitre said, "I no longer need that hypothesis." And and actually, I agree. You don't need the hypothesis anymore to bolster belief in God. You don't need to have a God to believe in the laws of physics. You don't need a God for giving birth or the rain. Giving water sustenance to your crops. You don't need God anymore. So Lemaitre is actually right. For him to say it was destroyed, I mean, I think every scientist worth a name would say, well, we don't need God for the Einsteinian equations. We don't need it for anything. We just use what we have, and there's just no reason for that. I'd like to know how. Give me that $100, by the way.
Give you the $100. I'm sorry, I got distracted because I got a message. Here's one thing. You gotta rewrite those books better, because I don't think you answered them well. If they said essentially that he proved God, how do you have the guts to say that that there's no way to prove any of this?
No way to prove what we don't need. See, if something's utterly irrelevant, then you don't need to disprove it.
God? What would make you believe in God, John? He would have to appear before you.
Just a minute, please.
Yeah, let me hear.
All right, you're going from topic to topic.
No. Oh, and you haven't done that today. You've done just that.
I've done it too, but
I'm going to allow you to speak. Go ahead.
Thank you. You don't need to prove something wrong if it's utterly irrelevant, or just irrelevant. And we don't need, just like Lemaitre said to Napoleon, he said, I don't need that hypothesis. Occam's razor said the same thing. Occam said, I don't need the hypothesis of a God. That simply save a step and have a simpler theories are to be preferred over more complex ones, and so we can do without God in science. So there's two scientists, and we don't need that hypothesis, and that's what's happened. Is it's not necessary that God was argued out of existence. He wasn't needed. He wasn't needed for healing somebody. We have doctors and medicine for that. He wasn't needed for this, and he wasn't needed for that.
If God wasn't needed for healing because we have doctors and medicine, why were people healed at Lourdes and at Fatima when they were told by the doctors that they were terminally ill and couldn't be healed? If modern day medicine could do that.
Well, modern healings are irrelevant as well. Not that some miracles,
No, but you just said that we don't need any kind of healings or any of these kinds of miracles because of modern day medicine. But according to the doctors, many of these people were terminally ill. Many of them had ailments that they were never going to heal from, according to the doctors. But very clearly, modern day medicine didn't do anything there.
Well, like I said, let me finish my thought. I mean,
they're so edgy.
When you get sick, what's the first thing you do? Well, you take some aspirin. Maybe you might go to the doctor and you might give you some kind of. It depends on how bad your sickness is. Might give you some antibiotics or something like that. If you have a toothache, they might drill into your teeth. The dentist would do. We don't go to God. We just do not do that. Now, I'm not saying when I say we, everyone goes to God immediately, but there are some people still who go to God in prayer and they die. Some of them still die today in the backwoods, in the backwaters of places around the world. You're much better off to survive if you go to a doctor.
But yet these people all did go to a doctor. All these people did go to a doctor, didn't get healed, and they were healed by God.
So the very fact that if we're going to go by what you said,
modern day medicine can't heal everyone.
The very fact that they go to faith healers as a last resort tells you something about their own faith. That they first go to doctors, and so that's a last ditch effort to try to find some healing.
That isn't true, because not all these people were believers. That isn't true. But either which way, even if, let's say, some of these people were believers, they had the greatest faith in the world. Are you telling me their greatest faith in the world was more powerful than modern day medicine? They were healed because of that faith? Because they were healed from terminal illnesses. Many of these where doctors had no explanation, and you don't have an explanation either.
Oh yeah, I do. I mean, so a doctor, I've heard many doctors say something like, or quoted as saying, well, it's a 1 in a million healing. So
these are all 1 in a million healings.
1 in 2 million. I never thought it would happen. So you have the odds set by the doctor himself, and they say, well, it's a 1 in a million healing. Now, if that's the case,
it does become a wild coincidence then. That all these 1 in a million healings are occurring there at Fatima and at Lourdes. It does become a pretty amazing conspiracy theory then. It just doesn't happen.
No, it's the odds. What we're talking about are the odds, and we'd have to calculate them, and it'd be interesting to do that. But with 8 billion people on the planet experiencing, let's just throw out for conjecture, 8 billion people who have, let's say, 100 experiences per day. Now, it could be just simply looking up and looking into the sky. It could be, you patting your stomach just to see how it feels, or it could be someone walking in your house and shooting you. I mean, just 100 experiences a day. Now, with 8 billion, excuse me.
Uh-oh. He dropped out. Until he as we wait for him to come back, audience, I want to tell you thank you so much for your support. Everyone, your super chat, since I've told you all many times over, allow us to be here. Allow us to do shows like this, debates like this, and do the material we're doing. We're incredibly grateful to you, faithful. You all are beyond amazing. You all allow us to do these kinds of debates and research. If you're loving this, please let me know. He should be back in a moment. Audience, if you're liking it, please let me know. It says he's backstage, but device is not connected. He must have tripped a cord or something. He likely tripped a cord or something. There we go. You're back.
Let me just finish. And I think I did finish. I mean, like with 8 billion people having 100 experiences a day, you're going to have multiple times where a 1 in a million event took place. And
but yet you can't explain all these, because there's many cases, and including if I toss in the miracles of Saint Charbel, it gets even messier for you. But all of these healings, even from people that weren't believers, that were given diagnosis, well, either we've got a ton of really stupid and incompetent doctors, or we've got something supernatural going on. And I think it's reasonable to say there's something supernatural going on. You don't believe that. I'm going to be honest with you, John. I don't think anything would convince you. I really don't. Short of Jesus coming down and appearing before you, but maybe even then you would think that was, I don't know, you would think it was somebody who's pulling some shenanigans.
Now, unlike you, I do think there are things that could convince you.
Very clearly, because I'm a believer, and I've read all your books, which you claim have the very best evidence against it. By the way, going back to the brother St. Francis Babytoe, you wouldn't agree that Lemaitre, and I don't know how to pronounce it, you wouldn't agree that his model, and let me ask you this, you don't think that model would lean heavily towards God because it points to a universe with a beginning, not an eternal material cosmos? You wouldn't agree with that?
I don't know the full.
Okay, you don't know. You don't know if you don't know enough about it. That's fine. I don't want to.
Well, no. But I think what he, based on Newtonian science, the first 3 laws of motion, etc., he probably just came up with a universe that didn't need a God for it, and that's all I know. That's what he said. That's what the
his model
passed down to us anyway.
But his model leans towards a creator, though. You would still deny that.
Well, I don't know what his beliefs are.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know whether I think he was an atheist. Yeah, I think he was an atheist. Yeah.
Okay.
That's my memory, but then I could be wrong.
Now, you have written on science, so it is fair to ask you these. Okay, go ahead.
But I do want to. You challenged me, and well, here's what happens when you challenge me about something. About something that. It just depends on my memory for answering. And you asked me about what was borrowed from the Bible. Well, one thing is, and I'm trying to get that, the very first apologist. Now, you probably.
I already know where you're going. You're going to St. Justin the Martyr. You don't want to go there.
I do too. I do too.
Let me just warn you what I did to Bob Price in our debate. You don't want to go there, but go there. Go ahead.
So you pride yourself in answering things and not considering them. Okay, so no.
I'll consider it. Read it, Justin Martyr. I can already tell you what he says. Don't be scared. Don't be scared. Read it. Come on. You're in my world now, dealing with the patristics. Read it.
I see it. I don't have the actual first apology, but I brought up.
So I know what you're going to say. Let me.
That Jesus is no different than one of the sons of Zeus.
Correct. But why is he saying that, though? You don't even have the context. You're going to make the argument. You're going to make the argument that Bob Price, a fatal error he made in our debate, and it was brutal. Here's your error. By hearing that from Justin Martyr, you then make the connection that Jesus is a pagan copycat. But your grand error is that Justin Martyr is accusing the pagans of copying, not the other way around. He's accusing them of ripping off from the Christians and of being copyists, not the other way around. So if you actually knew the context of the Apologia and what St. Justin the Martyr is saying, you wouldn't be making this argument. And I would hope the more and more that I educate atheists as they bring this argument up, the more and more they'll stop using it. I know every argument you can go to in church history. Justin Martyr doesn't save you.
Well, so since you're right there, and since you're so knowledgeable, how easy would it be for you to? I'm on my phone. How easy would it be for you to pull up the work that I'm referring to?
I could pull it up very easily, but I know it off the top of my head. I know everything he says. Sons of Jupiter and what have you, dying and rising gods. I know what he says.
Yeah.
But he's accusing the pagans. He's accusing them of aping the Christians. That's what he's accusing them of doing. He's not accusing. It's not the other way around. He's not saying. Hold on. He's not saying that that these predate Christianity. No, he's saying that they're copycats is what he's saying. He's calling them falsifiers is what he's doing.
Well, he doesn't use that word. He just says they're the same.
He calls them satanic.
No. There's an exact phrase. They're nothing new. No, that's in Greek. I looked at it. I'm proposing to you nothing new. That Jesus is like as one of the sons of Zeus. Nothing new. That's what it says. Nothing new.
From what they are believing, because they believe that, John. They believe that, and he's saying what we believe is this, and this, and he says you believe this, But notice, here's your issue, and I hope you don't go down this route. He's not saying we believe in everything the same. He's saying there are certain parallels, but he's not saying the parallels predate Christianity. Show me the text where he says it predates Christianity.
If you're interested, folk. No, you don't do that.
It doesn't work against me, John. I know all of these texts. I know them off the top of my head.
Oh,
I've debated you guys for years. I've debated you for years, John. I know every argument. I've looked at every claim. So hold on. That's not an area you want to go to. Are you arguing? And I hope you're not. You're not arguing that Jesus is a pagan copycat in terms of the resurrection, are you?
He talked about that. He in his apology.
Are you arguing that?
Well, what we have is what we don't have is a Jesus, a historic. What we don't have is a historical Jesus in the Gospels.
So let's look at the pagan. You shouldn't have gone here, John. I warned you. I was trying to help you save face. You shouldn't have gone here. Where's the story? So let's look at a bunch of pagan deities. We'll look at Adonis. We'll look at Attis. We'll look at Baal. We'll look at Dionysius. We'll look at Hermes. We'll even look at Krishna. And we'll look at Mithras and Orpheus. Which one of these was virgin born? You can toss out crucifixion if you want. Which one of these is virgin born and bodily rose from the dead? Adonis?
Well, no. What I was doing here is I was answering a question. You said they didn't bother anything. I mean, they didn't borrow.
They didn't.
Christians did not borrow anything, and Justin clearly says that there's nothing new. There's nothing new about this. So,
but he is no. That's not what he's saying. He's accusing them of being copycats, of being satanic, demonic copycats. He's not saying we copied this from you. He would never have said that. How could he even hold to his Christian faith if he would have said that, John? But you just made the grand claim that Jesus was a pagan copycat. Was Adonis? Did he bodily resurrect?
No. What happened? Look. All right.
Attis? Baal? Come on. You got to give me one. Give me one of them.
No. Look. I have a chapter in one of my books called "At Best, Jesus Was a Failed Apocalyptic Prophet."
But that doesn't prove that he was a pagan ripoff of a rising Messiah or rising God.
That means everything that I mean, and that he was at best he was a failed apocalyptic prophet. Now, what happens once you get that view? You can add to it. You add this to it. You add that to it. The virgin birth story was clearly a story written after they believed Jesus rose from the dead. Nope. So I'm not claiming by itself right now, just like you're not claiming that the earth is older than 8,000 years old. I'm just saying at this point that
you're wrong about Isaiah. You're wrong about Isaiah.
You want to go whether or not the universe is 5 billion years old or not? No, you don't want to do that. I don't want to. We're already getting aside from the lots of things. You had asked me.
You're the one that
point out what's been borrowed. You asked me what was borrowed in the New Testament, and I just pointed it out to you.
So then
I think you admitted it, and that's all I wanted to do with that.
No, I didn't admit it. I didn't. I said you're wrong. So now I'm asking. Number one, you're wrong about the virgin birth. You don't want to go there. Isaiah 7:14. Isaiah 7:14. The Hebrew word Alma is for a virgin. It would have been different had it been Betula. The Hebrew word Alma points to a virgin. And then in the Greek Septuagint, it translates as Parthenos. That is a virgin birth. Well before any bodily resurrection. So you're wrong about that. But you just said right now that I agree to this pagan copycat nonsense. So I'm asking you, which pagan deity bodily rose from the dead? So Jesus died. So which one? Was it Adonis or Attis? Because the last I checked, Attis wasn't even virgin born. His mother conceived by a fruit, and there's no resurrection account. In Adonis, there's none either. In Baal, there's none either. In Dionysius, he wasn't even virgin born. In Hermes, there's no resurrection account. What about Krishna? There's no crucifixion, and he's the 8th son born. You see what you see as I go down the line, John? It more and more seems like the ones that have been falsifying and BSing have been the atheists to try to make Christianity look untenable. But when atheism is pressed, and your book isn't going to save you, we just exposed one error in your book just a little while ago. I wouldn't be surprised if you have more errors in terms of the rising and dying deities. But if you're going to quote something, you better know that I'm going to ask for the source. Good luck.
Well, you probably don't agree with anything I'm going to say, but
well, give me the evidence.
Yes, all right.
Give me the evidence is what I say.
Just 1 second here. I don't have a way of even searching through, with as many books as I've written. I can't remember what I said about certain things. I have to reread it. And sometimes I'll read it and I'll say, "Oh, did I say that?" Because it's so much.
I think every time that I read a book of yours, I say, "Did he actually write that?" I think we're both on the same page when it comes to that.
I know what I'm trying to quote from N.T. Wright. It's just it might take me a minute or two. You can go ahead and.
I want to give a shout out to the brother of St. Francis Baby Toe. He asks you, general relativity is the foundation for physics, yet JWST has found black holes far earlier than science can make sense of. Thus, science, which is an atheist's favorite tool, has to keep being fixed. If the scientific foundation for atheist claims, how can atheism be true if it can't be consistent? That is probably the best question of the evening. Thank you for your support, St. Francis Baby Toe. Thank you, my friend.
Well,
you can't answer that, can you? You can't even answer that, can you?
Are you back to me?
If over and over, science has to be modified, and that's your favorite tool, and over it's got to be modified, how can atheism be true if it can't even be consistent? That, to me, is probably one of the best questions we've gotten.
Okay.
So you've admitted that too. Science can change. You've admitted that.
Let me. What do you think of N.T. Wright and his work on the resurrection?
So you admit you can't answer that question.
You told me to find the place. I found the place. I was not.
Okay, let me hear N.T. Wright. Go ahead, and then we'll go back to
N.T. Wright. Tell me you like his scholarship, don't you? He's a massive amount of writing.
Yeah, he's good on the resurrection. He's good.
Now, when it talks about virgin-born, dying, and rising gods, he said that they were floating around the first century. Here's the exact quote. He acknowledges this when writing about these dying and rising gods that have, quote, too many variations even to list, unquote. Wright goes on to say these dying and rising gods were, quote, intertwined, combined, separated out again, and recombined, end quote. And then that's where I talk about Justin Martyr. So I quote New Testament N.T. Wright because he agrees with me.
How does he agree with you there? He just said the exact opposite of what you're saying. There's nothing coherent in these rising and dying deities. But here's another thing you don't have from N.T. Wright, which, by the way, I know him personally. Here's another thing you don't have from him. You don't have a money quote where he would say that these pagan deity writings predate Christianity. You know very well they don't. Our stories of Thor, many that we have, are very late. Apollonius of Tyana, one of Bob's favorite, is late. Many of these figures are so late. I know they may have existed way before, but there's stories where they rise from the dead. Many of them post-date Christianity. They don't predate it.
Well, you can't say that of Zeus and his children and his sons and daughters. You can't say that of Zeus.
But you got to show me that Zeus lines up as Christ being a pagan copycat. He's most definitely not a copycat of Zeus. I tell you that right now. He's not. So you need to look at the evidence. I'm not dodging it. I don't think you have.
Anybody interested, you would agree with me on this. Anybody interested should look up the first and second apologies of Justin. So that's a.
Of course, I agree, and they don't.
Just read it. Do you remember the passage? That we're speaking of, because I want them to read it themselves. I wish I could pull it up on the screen, but I can't because I can't. You can badger me all you want, but I'm just going to smile.
Let me pull it up.
But that's not what you wanted to talk to me about.
Yeah, I mean, I've already refuted you on that, but I'll pull it up and I'll tell the audience where they can find it so that they can go and read it themselves. Because they're going to read and they're going to see where he just says that demons imitated the truth. Well, if demons imitated the truth, what does that mean? Audience, go look up his first apology. It is... It is First Apologia, chapter 31. People can go and look at that. And people will see where he says that they have imitated. They're demonic imitations. So if demons imitate the truth, very clearly this cannot predate Christianity. So that's yet again another bad argument. But I wanted to see if you could answer that question from earlier that I asked you. St. Francis Babytoe, that's a great one. I think it's been the best one all afternoon, where he says, it's fair. General relativity is the foundation for physics, yet JWST has found black holes far earlier than science can make sense of. So science, which is your favorite tool, you've admitted it, has to continue being altered. So the scientific foundation for atheist claims has to continue being altered. Well, then how can atheism be true if it can't even be consistent? That's a very, very, very fair question. You have to admit that your position is not even consistent.
Well, I mean, you were reading that long before I saw it on the screen, so I have to.
Okay, go ahead. I'm going to give you your due time. Go ahead.
JWST.
I'm not sure, but I think the whole thing still stands. Whatever JWST stands for, either which way, he's right about that. Science continues to evolve and change. Things continue to be changed. So if that is your main tool, which you've said many times it is, your foundation, and it continues to be changed, how can you even say that your position is consistent if science itself continues being altered?
I would. I don't know how many atheists view your program, but I wouldn't mind taking questions and having your take on mine on it. But
I have a few atheists that watch, but I mean, predominantly it's going to be a Christian crowd.
Okay, that's all right. Now, from my perspective, I mean, there is no view of the universe that is atheist. And I don't think any atheist would say, "Well, this is my view." There's no view.
Very briefly, let me just briefly interrupt. Is it all right with you if I pin the link, and if anybody comes back here to ask you something, would that be all right with you?
Yeah, anything, sure.
Okay, the link has been pinned to audience. If you all want to come back here and you want to engage with John, you can. I have now pinned the link. If you want to ask him a question, guys, I think I've already barbecued him well enough. So if any of you all want to come back here and ask him something, he's been barbecued, guys. So you guys get the crispy pieces of him.
One thing about William is that he's such a likable guy.
John, we've been friends for the longest time, haven't we?
Yeah,
we've been friends. And John can tell you guys behind the scenes, I'm always checking and seeing how he's doing, how his family is. I care for John. John knows that. He'll tell you I care for him.
Yep.
The brother Daniel is here, and you got a heavy hitter here, John. What's up, brother Daniel? Take it easy.
Hey, John. Hey, William. How are you?
Hey, brother? Doing well, brother.
John, I have a question for you to ask. It's a scientific question, so let's start there.
I'm not going to be an answer man, just so you know. But yes, I'll. What do you have to say?
I understand. Do you know the double slit experiment, Young's double slit experiment on light? Have you heard of that?
Oh yeah.
So I want
the electron. You can predict its velocity, but not its direction, and vice versa. But you can't do both. Something like that.
No, that's not it. But let me explain it to you real quick, right? So if you have a source of, let's say a light and two narrow slits for light to pass through, the outcome of the experiment is gonna differ whether you observe the light or you don't observe it. Does that make sense? So if you observe what the light interference is doing prior to reaching that hole, the outcome of the experiment is going to be different than...
right. Okay, now you refresh my mind. Yeah, if you observe it, then it changes the results, right?
He's right.
Yes. How do you explain that, John?
Well, did you just ask me whether I'm a scientist? I don't know. I mean, are you going to sit here and tell us what quantum theory is all about? I think was it Penrose? He says I don't even think I know what it means. So you're asking me, a non-scientist? There is no atheist perception versus a believer's perception. I mean, science produces, the goods, and then everybody interprets them as they will. But I'm saying that atheism isn't a scientific view. Whatever science finds is completely compatible with there being not being a God, and certainly not the God of the Bible, not the God of the Bible that we form our religions on.
Yes, all I'm trying to say is sometimes science will not make sense, and there's no scientific tool right now that can explain this experiment, because observing something and for that thing to react differently for something such small as light, and whether light is a series of photons, whether it's a wave or not, that's also something to understand. So there are some things that you need to agree on that they could be supernatural per se. Is that a good statement to say?
Well, Daniel, let me ask you, I mean, for the tons and tons of questions that people have asked ever since the dawn of time, beginning with how am I going to get this this boulder moved a mile down the road? You get yourself some wheels, so you invent wheels. So from all of these questions that we have solved down through the time, I would think most of them, the answer would have been, we don't know. I mean, like if they were to say, well, how can I fly? Well, we don't know. Well, now we got, jets and, helicopters and parachutes. Well, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? Or what's the answer to this? Or what's the answer to that? I mean, like most of the questions at the time we asked them would have demanded the answer, I don't know. Faraday, he had some experiments that were solved by some equations. And if somebody asked Faraday, well, how does this work? He would say, I don't know, it just does. So that doesn't bother me at all. I mean, right now the questions are on the frontiers of science, and no one knows those answers yet. There might be someone who does have the answers, and they're coming up with them as we speak. But I'm okay with saying we don't know where the Earth came from until we learn something about astronomy and
no, but John, then you're going through the theory of the God of gaps. So you are saying that as long as we cannot explain something, there's something supernatural, but you're saying in the future it's gonna be explained. So you're looking at us as if, hey, if something cannot be explained, then we're using a stronger deity to explain it, right?
I'm not saying anything about you necessarily. It might be a corollary of what I'm saying, but I'm not. I'm just saying that saying I don't know would be a better answer than trying to come up with something that doesn't have any evidence for, or hypothetical conjecture, or like Occam said, simpler explanations are preferred. Just like Lemaitre was talking about that.
Yeah, and I want to be respectful of William's time. So, John, I'm going to ask 2 quick questions, and I'll be out of your way, William.
No problem, brother. Go for it.
I don't know if you covered this, William, but so I wanted to tell you that I want to prove to you through physics that there are things that we can understand. There are things that are supernatural. But in the Old Testament, when someone took the bones of a prophet, they were raised from the dead, right? And I wanted to show you that even church fathers have raised people from the dead. We're not talking about someone who might be dead, might not be dead, people who were dead for days, and they were raised from the dead, right? So from a scientific manner, if you see me right now, and I say, hey, and you know someone who's been dead for 3 days, and I come next to you, and I say, you know what, Giant, I'm going to raise them from the dead, and it happens, how would you react to that?
Well, I mean, give me an example of that actually took place in reality. I don't find one. I don't find anyone having come up to me and saying, hey, we're going to raise them from the dead, and then that happened. That scenario never happened. It hasn't happened to me.
If it would happen to you, how would you reply to that?
No, that's a hypothetical that has not happened, and you're going to use that if I say, well, yeah, I believe, as if that legitimizes you. or your beliefs.
Let me mention one saint, okay? So Saint Martin de Tours, he's in 397, and this is in front of many people. I'm not talking about him doing it in a room or in front of many people. He raised the dead catechumen via prayer. That's one. Another time, he revived the hanged slave. So they hung a slave. He's dead. He revived him, okay, in front of everyone. And then he raised the girl from the dead in front of a pagan crowd, and that's what made them convert. So you got 3 instances of dead people who were completely dead. It's not like he had CPR, he didn't have electricity, he didn't have medicine. He just put his hand on them and prayed, and they were raised. What do you do there?
Who did this?
Saint Martin of Tours. It's in 397.
In the year 397.
Yes. And I'm gonna link it to Saint Ambrose of Milan because it's the same time. He raised the dead boy in Florence, and then
here's the thing about that miracle and raising of Lazarus, told by I think the Gospel of John. What I want to do, what I need to do, I need to be like a doubting Thomas. I mean, like now, you have a story in there like doubting Thomas, and doubting Thomas was given, according to the story, the evidence. But even that story doesn't tell me anything, because you can tell the same story, and that doesn't mean it's evidence for me. So what I would want to know, I would want to see it, touch it, hear it, that kind of thing, or have some kind of a pre-designed protocols for testing whether it's not a magic trick, because those things happen, or that it's not written on hindsight to bolster someone's credibility in the sight of the masses. Because back in those days, you have to realize that God has a real big problem here. If he wants us to believe in a scientific world that these miracles took place, because if you've read Bart Ehrman, William has, I'm sure, the pre-scientific world, they didn't have any fact-checking way to know whether a story was true. It was just basically if you believe the person telling the story. I mean, because everything that happened was a miracle, and it rained. It was a miracle. Who prayed for this miracle? Well, I did. So therefore, that's why they got rain. Or what child came back to good health after being really deathly sick, and what for?
I don't think people are going to compare rain to Saint Martin of Tours raising people from the dead. They're definitely not the same. You know that they're not the same there, John.
And John, and your position. So when Jesus laid Lazarus from the dead, the Jews said, "You know what? We need to kill them both again." So even in front of them, he did this, and it was. So there's nothing that someone can do in order to prove it. But I don't want to be stuck on one topic. I want to.
I'd like to comment on Lazarus, since you mentioned it, if you don't mind. Well, see, there's nothing in the Gospel of John. There might be in 2nd century literature or 3rd or 4th century literature, but there's nothing in the Gospel of John where someone questions Lazarus and said, "Hey, well, how was it like being dead? Who'd you talk to? What did Abraham say? What did Jesus what did God tell you while you were dead?" I mean, so wouldn't you think that would be really highly interesting information? Lazarus would be better as an authoritative writer of a gospel than any of the gospel writers. But you don't find that. You don't even find where he dies again. So there's a lot.
John, they asked these people that were raised, and they don't remember what happened. They just know that they're back to life. So even if they ask Lazarus, he has no information on that. So this is a supernatural event. The mysteries of God are not going to be revealed unless he wants them revealed. But that's a separate conversation. I want you to two things, and I'll be out. I want to be respectful of William's time. The Eucharistic miracles only have X chromosomes, and there's no Y. Genetically, you cannot prove that. There's no bacteria on this planet that can do that. So that's one thing I want you to talk your way out of. And then more importantly, I want to go to the evil side. So when a demonic possession happens, you have 20 different possessions in 20 different countries. And that person who's being possessed learns an ancient language like Latin. There's no scientific explanation for that. They start speaking in Latin, which is an ancient language, and they react in a horrifying way with supernatural strength, climbing walls in front of any of the sacraments that you show them. There is no psychological, what you want to call it, schizophrenia, bipolar. There's no disease that can make you know an ancient language across 20 uncorrelated events in different countries where they have no cross-contamination. How do you explain that with science?
Well, before I have to explain anything, I need to be convinced it happened. I mean, don't ask me to explain something. I have not seen the evidence. I have not seen evidence for that.
You've never seen an exorcism. Do you acknowledge that it might be possible that I'm not lying right now and that exorcism actually happens?
Because I don't believe a devil is really anything I could believe in. I mean, you have to believe that apparently that somehow there was the highest creation in God's in creation named the devil, who decided to have a war with God, who's omnipotent, all-knowing, and all loving. You think that a creature that evil to want to wage a war against God, and that suicidal to wage a war with God, and that dumb to wage a war with God would actually even think about waging war with God. But see, that I can't believe in a devil because the story doesn't make sense. Now, there's some things about these that you have to be understanding about. I'm not just talking about the evidence. I'm talking about making things make sense. So since I don't think that you can make the devil sensical, I don't think that story happened. I mean, you'd have to make sure that I can. That's reason. I could do reason, or I could do evidence. I could do reasoning evidence, and that's what I do to the miracles, especially those that are so allegedly caused by Satan.
Okay, so William, that's all I have. Thank you, John.
Brother, great talking to you, Daniel. Good talking to you, brother. Talk to you again soon.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sounds to me like there's nothing that could ever make you believe, John. There's just nothing, man. There's
well,
nothing.
the reason why, my friend, is because for something to change my mind, history would have to change. That is, there would have to be.
That's pretty arrogant. You want history to change for your mind to be changed. I think we've got great evidence.
I want to be able to corroborate the miracles that we've read about in the Bible. I mean, it's something that you would want to do with the Mormon Church. The Mormon Church, you'd want to investigate and interview the people involved who said, "Well, yeah, we saw the golden plates of Joseph, and he legitimately translated them into this Book of Mormon." And then to realize that half of them recanted, some of them just walked away from the church, and you'd ask yourself, "Now, why would the original people not endorse Mormonism afterwards?" So,
well, because it's a complete fraud. Mormonism's a fraud. You don't have that with Christianity even remotely similar.
Well, that's because Christianity is remote.
Yeah, the thing is, the reason you don't have that in Christianity is because you have those that saw the risen Christ going to their death and their martyrdom because they really did see the risen Christ. Unlike those that recanted in Mormonism, you don't have that in Christianity. In Christianity, you have figures that knew the apostles as well that went to their martyrdom, and you have it in mass amounts. So you don't have the parallel at all. The complete fraudulent stories of Joseph Smith, he's been shown to be a fraud many times over. A complete fraud.
You apparently have not read Candida Moss's book on the martyrdoms in the early church. Then, she's a Catholic scholar. She's a Catholic scholar. Candida Moss.
I've heard of some arguments.
She argues that this widespread martyrdom of the early church Christians just didn't happen.
Yeah, that is completely silly, and so she can say that all she wants. The problem is
she put the argument together.
Unless you provide actual testimony, I really don't care what she has to say. She's probably an unbeliever.
Well, then don't bring it up.
For all that I know. No, well, the difference is I can bring it up and I can prove it. So the difference is I have testimony from enemies that prove it. So I don't care what Candida Moss says. I have testimony and evidence from enemies. Josephus is not friendly to Christianity. He mentions the martyrdom of James. He's not friendly. And we have many other evidences in pagans and even early Jews that show that the Christians are being martyred early on. These aren't positive testimonies. So whatever Candida Moss says or believes, really at the end of the day, it's her against firsthand testimony. And I think I'd go with Josephus a little bit more than Candida Moss. Now, who is Candida Moss? Who is she?
Catholic scholar, teaches at Notre Dame. No, hear my claim. It's not that
Birmingham. Professor Moss.
She might
University
move
of Birmingham.
It's not. My claim is not that people didn't die for their faith. We read that in about Stephen in Acts chapter 7 or something. But it's not that doesn't happen. But widespread martyrdom, she said, didn't occur. Like an edict from an emperor or a king. People got killed for their faith. Yes.
I'll be honest with you. I have not read her work, but if that is the claim that she's making, history is against her. Squarely against her. If that is her claim, she has to reckon with Josephus and early pagan writers, and I don't think she'd survive that.
Josephus is not as accurate as you would want to lean on. I mean,
I would agree with Bart Ehrman
compared to a modern scholar. But
nobody's arguing that. If you want to argue compared to a modern scholar, then nobody in antiquity is valuable. Nobody's going to make that argument. He's valuable enough to be recording events like martyrdoms. People would agree with that. But where does Candida Moss most definitely doesn't argue that martyrdom didn't occur among the followers of Jesus, does she?
No, she doesn't. No, are we still there?
Yeah, I'd have to look into what she says.
Just that it's not widespread. It's not widespread like is portrayed in the early church.
What does she mean by widespread? Does she deny? Does she deny that? Does she deny the Bible?
Well, that's your choice. Look it up and see. It's serious enough that Josh McDowell's son, what's his name?
I don't care what Protestant.
Sean McDowell. He wrote a book about the martyrdoms as well, and he agreed somewhat with Candida, by the way.
I mean, well, this is a Protestant, Josh McDowell. I don't care what he says.
But Sean McDowell.
Tertullian, Irenaeus, these are very early writers talking about late 100s, writing about them being martyred. First-hand testimony. So I'd go with them over a Candida Moss any day. I would trust them over a Candida Moss any day. Earlier, St. Francis, do you have about, because I do have to go in a bit, do you have at least half an hour more? You good with that?
Have what?
Do you at least have half an hour more?
How long
do you got? Or do you have to go?
What'd you say of getting battered? Is that was it, or badgered, or what would you say earlier? As you said, oh, you have badgered me, or long enough, or something. Battled.
Oh, barbecued you, butchered.
Barbecued.
I don't remember barbecue. Yeah, you have half an hour more to get barbecued more.
Do I want to get barbecued some more? I mean, I don't know. You're just doing a good job of it.
Yeah, it's going to get worse right now. 30 more minutes of barbecuing you. St. Francis Babytoe says, Dr. Dessous. Oh, this is a good one. We're going to return to this. And I do have to go in a bit. I still have some more time, though. Who was the original doctor at Lourdes, was an atheist. He became a Christian because he couldn't explain the miracles. He wanted to disprove the miracles in his hometown of Lourdes. Be an honest atheist. Deal with that. That's what I wanted St. Francis Babytoe. I wanted him to deal with that earlier. He couldn't. That was my whole point. Earlier when I was dealing with Lourdes, with Fatima, I was pointing this out. I was pointing out how there were non-believers there too that confirmed miracles really did occur. He couldn't deal with it. How do you respond to that? Be honest.
Well, what date was this? I'd be interested to know. I don't know.
Let me see the date.
Francis Babytoe.
Dr. Dessous.
Well, I want to know when it was dated, but people change their minds for all kinds of reasons. I mean, you can't quote someone who was an atheist and became a Christian and say, "See, you should be a Christian too." Or you can't do likewise. You can't say, "Well, Loftus became an atheist even though he's a Christian, so you should be an atheist too." These kind of stories, they're bantered off back and forth, and it doesn't say how I might have responded under the same conditions, because we have different motives and different reasons, and we follow different kinds of guidelines and stuff. So I don't have any. I don't know anything about the story. You can't say I'm not honest by accepting this. I don't know anything about it.
It'd be late 19th century. It would be late 19th century, but we have many other doctors. Dr. Sousa, and we have many others in the early 20th century, where they very clearly say that there is a particular ailment or an illness that is terminal or can't be healed, and and they say they recognize that full healing has occurred, and they have no explanation. And many of them become believers as a result of people going to Lourdes, as a result of these healings there.
Yeah, I mean, it's like me saying, well, what do you guys say to Bart Ehrman or Hector Avalos or Bob Price or Richard Carey or
about
Dan Marker or John Loftus?
About what? Tell me, and I'll answer.
They used to be Christians, and now they're atheists. So take that.
Yeah,
that
my answer
don't make sense to me.
But my answer would
one way
be,
or the other.
My answer would be that that John Loftus has not been fair with the evidence. I don't think you've been fair with it. I think you've played fast and loose with it. We saw with your Francis quote earlier. So this very clearly is going from someone that didn't believe, and a miraculous event occurred, and now they have become a believer. Are they all liars? Are all of the ones? Are they all liars? Do you think? I mean, it's fine if you believe that all these doctors are liars.
Well, my guess. See, here I'm going to say my guess is that that. Hear me out. Yeah. Once again, because you didn't listen the first time.
Go ahead.
I'll make it real fast. There are 8 billion people on the planet, and they have, say, about 100 experiences per day. And so several 1 in a million things are going to happen to everybody. And every once in a while, those are going to look like miracles. And people uninformed about the odds or the chances or the coincidences that are available to all of us every day are just something we can't calculate and we don't understand. So when something like that happens, we automatically attribute it to the God of our choice.
So there's no answer, ultimately. There's no good answer. I love that, man. I love that, though. Devore Marcus, brother, God bless you. You were gifting the memberships of people that are going to hear this, and they're going to go from atheism to Catholicism. I tell you that after hearing this show. Devore Marcus, God bless you, brother. People are going to go from atheism to being Catholic. I guarantee you that. Lena Molina, and then we'll go. You still have at least 20 minutes. You good with that?
Okay, sure.
Lena Molina says, John, your claims are based on the assumption that the universe is ontologically closed off to miracles. Can you prove that with evidence and proof?
No, I used to be a believer. I was a preacher. I taught Bible college. I taught apologetics and ethics and philosophy, so I'm fully aware. In fact, I'm aware of almost every argument. I mean, I'm aware of all important arguments, and I don't think any of them lead to the idea that I should believe in the God of Catholicism or the God of Judaism or the theistic gods, for instance. And beyond that, I'm not pretty sure that there's not some God at all. I mean, there might be some kind of.
What did you say? Say that again.
Well, I'm not so completely sure that there might not be some kind of spirit. I'll say that, or God somewhere, a deist God, but I don't think so. See, so I'm still on the I don't think so side. But I don't actually have to take a stand on the universe, just like our friend William here doesn't take a stand on how old the universe is. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've been told by scientists that it's 13.8 billion years old, and it explains things, and the things seem to be rocking the world of science. Every once in a while, I hear this is going to change science, how it works. But I don't work on that assumption. All I know is that there's no credible evidence to prove any of the miracles that support your faith in your God. No.
Okay. All right. That's a good one. John's not atheist. He's anti-theist. I think that's right. That's a good description because you just admitted there may be a God. You just admitted you're just anti anything that we have revealed to us. Right? You just don't believe anything that's been purportedly revealed to us, right?
Anti is pretty strong, but I'm anti sloppy thinking. I'm anti people who believe based on conspiracy theories. I'm anti, and I don't mean people, ideas. Conspiracy theories, the ideas. I'm anti people who. I don't want to say people, those who, that's again those, but anti-science. I'm not anti-science. I'm an anti-science. I'm anti people who don't reason. I'm anti people who don't look and challenge their own beliefs, the ones that they were indoctrinated to believe from when they were children. So I mean, I'm anti things. I'm anti people who aren't interested in following the truth. I'm anti, again, it's hard to say that without saying people. I'm not anti anybody, any person. But I am anti the things that I'm arguing against here.
Okay. Now, before we're done, I do want to confirm that St. Francis Babytooth is right. As I said, he says, I know Justin Martyr very well, and the atheist is lying. Right, he's wrong. And for people that are wondering, Justin Martyr, he's misreading him the way that our friend Bob Price misreads them. And I would recommend that they reread them because that's a really sloppy argument. But he asked me earlier to prove that he was wrong. And I'll prove that right here. I will bring you up right now, Andrew. Don't worry. I will prove that right here. And I've got it on the screen. Chapter 21 of the Apologia, Justin Martyr says that they have imitated and ripped off. But as we have said above, wicked devils perpetrated these things. But what does he mean? He's talking about, read the whole context of chapter 21, of ripping off, rising, and dying figures. But in chapter 55, he then says they've ripped off and imitated rising figures, but he says, look at what he says right here. But in no instance, not even in any of those so-called sons of Jupiter, did they imitate being crucified. So he flat out says they're imitators. They rip off and they copy from us, but they didn't even have the guts to copy the crucifixion. So that there, you're right, St. Francis. My friend John, you got to rewrite that portion of your book. You got to rewrite it.
If you're asking for every detail to be replicated in a subsequent story, and you're saying, well, since he doesn't replicate that detail, therefore they're talking about different events or different stories, and that's really a faulty assumption, I think. But I will say this.
Go ahead.
I will say this about Justin Martyr. Okay.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Richard Miller, do you know him? Richard C. Miller.
Yes, I've heard of Richard Miller. Yeah,
a scholar. He's written a foreword to one of my books. His book is called "Resurrection and Reception in Early Christianity," and I dare say that many of the people who are wondering about this passage, like in Justin Martyr, would have a difficulty even reading this book by Miller. It's dense. It's well argued. It explains what needs to be explained, and I don't think Christian apologists, can actually answer him. Now, I'm referring to him now, not myself.
What is the name of the book? And I'll read it. Richard Miller. And you say that people.
Yeah, Richard Miller. Resurrection and Reception in Early Christianity.
Okay. Richard Miller. Okay. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, and you'll be a witness. I'm going to read that book, and I'm going to publicly challenge Richard Miller to debate me. Publicly challenge on whatever platform he wants to debate me. We can do one of these mythicist platforms. I don't care where. It is out there. The challenge is out there. I will challenge you, Richard Miller, to debate me, and we'll go to the critical edition of the Greek of Justin Martyr and any of these early figures. I will challenge you to debate me, and I am a man of my word. I am going to get a hold of that book, and I'll begin reading it this weekend, and I'm going to challenge him to debate me on this.
Well, good for you. I'm glad to hear that. And he does online discussions. I'm trying to think if he does online debates. But yes, let's, you and I both get in contact with him.
Okay.
And
in fact, right after this, do you have his information?
Greek and everything.
Do you have his information? You don't have it. Okay, I'm fluent in biblical Greek.
Oh, on Facebook, just look. It's either he's got two sites. One is Rick Miller. That might be his personal site, and the other one is Richard C. Miller.
Okay. Let me just go backstage. Audience, we'll wrap it up in about 15 minutes. Let's go to Dax because he was here first. So we'll go to Dax, and then we're going to go to Andrew, and then we'll wrap it up, guys. Dax, what's up, my friend? Did you have a question for either me or for John? You're muted, my friend. There's no audio. No audio. Can't hear you, brother. I feel bad because you've been waiting there, my friend. But we'll go back to you. I'll go back to you. Don't worry. You're going to go to Andrew. And there's two Andrews. I don't even know which one. Andrew, is that the correct one?
Yeah, that's me. Can you
Hey,
hear
what's
me?
up, Andrew? How you doing, brother? Yes, I can hear you, my friend.
I'm good, William. How are you?
I'm doing well, brother. Great to hear you.
That's good. I hope you're well as well, John.
I'm sorry, what?
Did you have a question
I
for
hope
me
you're
or
well
for
as
John?
well, mate. I just wanted to. I came on your show, William, about 6 months ago, and you were having a discussion with John.
Oh wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and I did bring up the Lady of Zetoun apparition.
Oh,
And
okay.
John's scientific explanation to that was that he believes just as the Protestants believe.
Oh.
And as far as I'm aware, all the Protestants that did see the apparition at the time, they did not deny that an apparition actually occurred. How they reasoned with it is they called it a demonic apparition, which still goes against the naturalistic scientific explanation.
Sure does.
So, did you? And I remember when William asked John. Did you, have you looked into Zetoun? And John obviously responded saying, no, I haven't looked into that particular miracle. So I was asking, have you actually looked at it between 6 months ago and now?
No.
Yeah, because I think that's
Wait,
why
wait,
I got.
That doesn't
Yeah.
mean I'm not curious about additional things. But I'll let you have more time. Just let me explain why I am the way I am. I believed in hell. I believed at one time in an everlasting hell, in fire and brimstone of conscious experience. Okay, that's what I used to believe in. I taught Bible college. I was a preacher for years. I baptized people, and stuff like that. So, in order for me to leave the faith, I had to be sure I was correct about leaving my faith, and nothing but surety, nothing but near certainty could overcome my fears of roasting in hell. Now, the first step along my journey was I read up about hell. I read a lot about hell, and at the time I was a believer. I decided, for no reason besides no reason including the evidence, but just because I needed to conclude something, I conclude, well, okay, well maybe the annihilist view of hell is better because I can see that I can make the verses fit here and not fit there, and so I became a nihilist when it came to hell. So then I could inquire, on my own, without the fear of hell, what I thought. And so I came away with, these 15 books I have published, two are revisions, are the results of research then and now. And there's a lot there that you can't answer in one question or one soundbite. I am not going to revisit something just because someone says, well, you need to do this, you need to do that. Because the Muslims will say that, and the Jews will say that, and the Hindus will say that. And everybody's telling me, well, you missed out by not doing this. No, if there was a chance for God to convert me back, if there was a chance for God to wrest me from the grips of the devil, then he had his chance.
Andrew,
Yeah, I can understand what you're saying. However, I'm trying to benefit or assist the one who has the belief that we can only get our worldview from scientific explanations. So as the whole hell thing and all that, that's more like more of a faith-based belief based on what you're reading. I'm now assisting you by providing you scientific evidence that you can actually look into and examine and experiment. Just because your scientific reasoning wasn't good enough for me, because it went against science in every single way. You didn't look into it, you didn't conduct an experiment, you didn't investigate it, and then your explanations itself actually went against scientific reasoning, which is the Protestants believe it was a demonic appearance. So, and if you believe that it's a demonic appearance, then you must believe the possibility of it being a godly divine apparition, that God sent his own mother for us to intercede on our behalf. So I don't know where you're going with it, but I'm only trying to help the scientific mind frame that this is one that you may not be able to prove it, but when you go in depth and investigate it, it's very hard to deny that an apparition occurred, a supernatural event occurred on those events.
Was it examined by a panel of scientists?
Pretty much everybody, medical professionals, scientists. There were scientists that come from all over the world, not just Egypt. It was investigated by the government officials. It was in an Islamic country, so they had all the incentives to disprove this miracle. Obviously, because it will cause a lot of damage where Muslims will convert to Christianity.
Well, if that's your view of things, then if I were you, I would do what you're doing, challenging people to see it, watch it, listen to it.
Fair.
Would you consider watching it or investigating that miracle?
No.
Closed off, man.
No worries. Yeah, all good, man. I just wanted to have a go and see where what you'd come up with, but again, it's not good enough for me.
Didn't I just answer you when I said earlier about how I investigated it, and I investigated despite what happened. And I said if there was a chance for God to turn me around, He had it. Did I not tell you that? Does your God not listen? If there was a chance,
but
so
I'm now giving you what God's providing to you, and you're not.
So you think you got a gotcha moment or something like that? No, I gave God the chance. I gave Him a chance. You don't believe me? I gave Him every chance to turn my head around, and He did not do it.
Who are you to be making these demands to God?
I'm making because
who are you, John, to be putting these parameters up and saying I gave you a chance, God? I mean,
that's right, because I didn't believe Him. It's like giving a Mother Mary of a fable story a chance to tell you, that what she's doing really works. No, I didn't. It's not like I gave God a chance because I don't believe He existed. I was believing less and less all the time, of course. And now the only reason I say it is because I've left the faith. I didn't say that when I was doing that. I wasn't saying it along the lines with my hands folded and saying, God, I'm going to give you one more chance. I was crying every night. I was walking the streets of my subdivision crying out to God daily because it hurt, because I had given everything I had for God. And like very few people did that, I don't think. But He never answered me. I was crying out, please help me. Please help me. Tell me the truth. I want to know because this is hurting. And I needed to have some resolution. And He did not answer me. He did not give me what I needed, not what I required. I didn't demand this. He did not give me what I needed. Now you're going to sit there and you're going to say, well, you know what? I don't believe you. Go ahead. It's okay.
Yeah, but what if this apparition, actually this discussion is a way of Him communicating?
I was about to say that. Andrew, you took the words out of my mouth. There you go.
Yeah, and you've just got a hardened heart towards Him, so He's not going to force His,
we have free
He's
will.
not going to force Himself on you.
Fantastic answer.
Well, your God is too late.
It's never too late, John. It's never too late. We're not going to give up on you. Andrew, brother, thank you for coming up because I got to go soon, my friend.
Thank you for having me, guys.
God bless you, Andrew. Great talking to you, my friend. Great talking to you. John, it's never too late, my friend. Never too late for you to turn it around. But go ahead.
Can you do? Thank you so much. So you give me more than enough time, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you, if someone asks you tomorrow on your next program, or maybe 2 weeks from now, or a month from now, and if they say John is closed-minded, could you tell them honestly what I just said? Could you articulate what I just said? I'm not closed-minded. I became closed-minded.
Well, then you are closed-minded, though. You are, though. You became closed-minded. You just admitted it. And I agree with Daniel. He says there is evidence. You want it to be right in front of you. You've made those. You even told me that before, John. You've even told me. You've even asked me before, why didn't the resurrection happen in the modern era? So it's pretty much your parameters that you want. And imagine if the world thought that way. And the truth is, we do believe God did send his only son. And then with all the evidence that's been presented to you, you just swipe all of it away. And you have to admit, if all of these miracles, all of these healings, all of them were just fake and false, my goodness, what a grand, massive conspiracy theory. But you know, there's a possibility that some of those may be real. And if some of those may be real, as you admitted earlier, they could come from a God, as you admitted, that may exist. And that God may have worked those miracles. You've got to say that's a possibility.
Anything's possible.
There you go. There you go. So you're not lost, man. John Ostrich's head in the sand, but we're going to get his head out of the sand, Bronca. We're going to take his head out of the sand. And one of these days, we'll have John right next to me, sitting together with me, side by side at Mass. That's the goal. That's the goal. That's the goal. John, it was great talking to you again, my friend.
All right,
I am going to have to run because I gotta get I teach Christology at local parish today, but it was great talking to you, my friend. We'll be in touch.
Thank you, brother.
Hey, John, you take care, my friend. Talk to you soon, buddy.
All right, bye.
Wonderful talking to John. I wanted to bring more people up, audience, but I ran out of time. I got to go. I just look at the time. It's been 2 hours, and I got to rush. I teach at a local parish. I want to say thank you to all of you all that send super chats. You all are beyond phenomenal. You all allow us to do this work. And by the way, because of your ministry support, we're going to purchase that book that he recommended that apparently refutes the early church fathers on what the early fathers say against, apparently refutes some of the resurrection. We're going to purchase that book, go over it, and challenge that guy to debate that he brought up. Audience, I want to thank you all. Your support allows us to be here, allows us to do this work. We wouldn't be here without you all. You all are beyond phenomenal. Lena Molina says, I used to be an atheist, John. It comes from, it does. That's why John mentioned that he was crying. It comes from personal pain, bad logic, assumptions, and selfishness. I also taught at the university level too, like you. Lena Molina is incredibly bright. It does come from pain. And you will find comfort in Jesus. I'm telling you right now, you're only going to find that comfort in Jesus, only. And the fact that he is open to there being God, and maybe these miracles were done by a God, means that not all hope is lost, and we can't lose hope, and we can't stop praying for John. Devore Marcus, where have you been, my friend? The Lord bless you, brother. I missed you. How's your Lent going, brother? Devore Marcus says, the atheist is like a man who's looking at a masterpiece, says there is no painter, only paint. That is the cold, hard reality. Audience, you all have been beyond phenomenal. The Lord bless all of you all. We're going to close it out now with our intro. We didn't play it at the get-go. We're going to play it right now to close out. Audience, I love you all dearly. Please pray for me. I'll be praying for you. I am not perfect by any means, but may the Lord use an imperfect sinner like me to maybe help those stuck in darkness to come to Jesus. Jesus does not need me. I need Jesus. Thank you, everyone, for being here. The Lord bless you all. May the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. I love you all dearly.